So it's been a good, 3-4 years since I've done a video showing off my little personal library, so I figure, hell, why not? This is going to be really unscripted, so if I ramble at all, I apologize, but hey, let's take a look. So, starting from the bottom shelf, it's a dictionary and a thesaurus, nothing, really important, nothing really interesting there. The Scott Pilgrim series, books 1 through 6, it's one... I'm not really into fiction, but it's just a little stupid graphic novel. I've seen the movie, I've read the first 3, I enjoyed it. Maybe one day I'll read the next 3. I've debated selling them, but I enjoy them, so why not? Democracy and Socialism by Arthur Rosenberg. I got this at a thrift store in Philadelphia for $1. So I figure, hey, with a title like that, why not? And I looked it up. Arthur Rosenberg is a Marxist, or was a Marxist, rather. But, so that makes me optimistic in reading this. I need to look into more about Rosenberg and what this writing is about, what the meat of it is. But it seems interesting, and for $1, why not? Why Lenin, Why Stalin by Theodore H. von Lew. Again, same thrift store, got it for $1. Why not? It's a look at the Russian Revolution from the first part of it, the 1900 to 1930. I don't think von Lew is a Marxist or a leftist. I'm not sure exactly. I've looked it up. He's a historian, or was a historian. He looked a lot into Soviet and other similar subjects, but I don't know if he himself was a leftist. Either way, for $1, decent book. Invisible Punishment, The Collateral Consequences of Mass Imprisonment, excuse me. This was for college. It's a good read. I only read a few select chapters of it that I needed to for college, but what I read, I enjoyed, and it's something that for future projects I wanted to hold on to. It covers, just how mass imprisonment has affected communities, how it's affected employment, how it's affected black women and men, and other, other minorities. Other non-white folk, I should say. But still, it's a good read, and if you can find it, like a PDF of it, or even if an affordable copy of it, I would cop that. This was a gift, Bernie Sanders' Guide to Political Revolution. It's Bernie Sanders. I'm sure it's just, tax the wealthy, free college, free healthcare, but I figure, fuck it. It was free. And it'll help me understand more what, his position really is and what a lot of other, social democrats and Radlib's positions are. So, fuck it, why not? A People's History of the United States by Howard Zinn, a classic. I've read bits and pieces. I've seen interviews of Howard Zinn. I haven't read this in full, but it's on my list too. It's one of the next 3 or 4 books that I read, this is going to be one of them. I am going to read it before the end of the year. Robin D.G. Kelly's Hammer and Hoe, Alabama Communists During the Great Depression. This was recommended to me by one of my professors in college. Great man, very knowledgeable. So this is, I take his recommendations to heart, so I wanted to cop this. And I've read a chapter. I've only been able to read one chapter, but it was very interesting. I didn't have the time to really sit down and actually analyze it, and that's what I want to do. I want to sit down, really analyze the whole book, take notes as I'm reading it, stuff like that, Christian Parente's Lockdown America. This is Michael Parente's son, actually. And this is another interesting book. It shows how the militarization of the police and the prison system has just been so detrimental to society as a whole, how it's had so many mistakes made while doing it, how it has negatively affected different communities, different industries. It's very interesting. I would check it out. Want to Start a Revolution? Radical Women in the Black Freedom Struggle. I found this on Mercari for $9 with free shipping, so it's you know what, screw it, why not? If I bought it at my college bookstore, it probably would have cost me $25. But, it covers Rosa Parks, Assata Shakur. Who else? Let's take a quick peek. Yuri Kochiyama. Shirley Graham Du Bois. Yep, there she is. So, yeah, it covers a lot of stuff that, I have looked at before, but it's also stuff that I have not had a chance to study. So, good find. Assata's autobiography. Assata Shakur's Autobiography. Again, I needed this for college, but it was so fucking good that I just had to hold on to it, you know. It's one that I'm not going to sell. I don't care what happens. I'm not selling this. I know there are free copies online, but generally speaking, I prefer physical books. But this is such a good read. If you have not read this, you're fucking missing out. A History of African American Leadership, 3rd edition. This covers Obama, MLK, Malcolm X, Jesse Jackson. Well, I know there's others that I'm missing, but this was one that I needed for another college class, and it's very concise and very well written, very easy to read. So I figure, hey, hold on to it. It can easily help me out with future projects. The New Jim Crow, Mass Incarceration in the Age of Colorblindness by Michelle Alexander. This is one that so many people know about. It examines just how Jim Crow has evolved as society has gone on. How stuff like Jim Crow has never really fully died. How it's just evolved and found new ways to formulate itself. And this is, mass incarceration, mass policing, the militarization of police. Definitely recommend reading this. Capitalism and Slavery by Eric Williams. This was another recommendation from my professor. I haven't had a chance to read it, but it's on my list. A lot of these are on my list, and I really do need to get into reading more. I need to at least finish a book and then move on. I need to not, start one book, read like 3 or 4 chapters of it, start another. I need to just stay on one, take notes, and be done with it. But this does sound very interesting. The Red Army's Do-It-Yourself Nazi-Bashing Guerrilla Warfare Manual. This I needed for a class. I think it was on propaganda in European history, if I'm not mistaken. But it was an interesting little read. I only read the parts that I needed to for the class, but I figure, hey, why not? It's about punching Nazis. Fuck it. Naomi Klein's This Changes Everything, Capitalism versus Climate. I found this for $4 at an Ollie's bargain outlet, so why not? I don't know if Naomi Klein is a liberal or just like a social democrat or a democratic socialist. I don't really know her position, but I know I've seen her readings before, and she does seem like she at least knows for the most part what she's talking about, so I figure for $4, why not? Alright, this next shelf has a lot more, because a lot of these books are thinner, so let's start from this side. Mark Fisher's Capitalist Realism. I've read this, didn't fully understand it. I need to reread it and take some notes, but it's one of those things that I brought with me to my work, because I work in education, so sometimes, when I'm in a classroom, I just have nothing to do, so, I'll read this when, the kids just have a work period, or, if I'm on a break, if I'm on a planning period, so I did read it, but I need to take notes on it again. Anna Louise Strong's The First Eyewitness Report in North Korea. Very valuable read. Shows how the division of Korea was pretty much carried out, and how things in that area of the world were being, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't know. It shows how just society was happening and how it was running in that time with the Soviet zone and the US-supported zone, the North and the South, and the disparities between the two. Very interesting, very important read. The Program of the Party for Socialism and Liberation. I used to be a member of the PSL. I don't think my membership is still active, because I joined when I was 18, I think. I still get their emails and whatnot, but I'm not an official member. I've never paid dues or anything. But still, it's a good read. It really lays out what this party believes in, and the PSL in general is a pretty good party, so, it doesn't hurt to hold on to it. These ones I'm going to do all at once, because they're all kind of in the same vein. If I can get them out of this fucking thing. The For Beginners series. I have Che for beginners, Cuba for beginners, Marxist Capital for beginners, Capitalism for beginners, Mao for beginners, Lenin for beginners, and Marx for beginners. I have actually had reviews published of 2 of these books with Midwestern Marx. I did a review of Capital for Beginners and Cuba for Beginners from Midwestern Marx, and I know that I've done a couple reviews. I know I did a review of Che for Beginners for my channel. So these I always recommend getting. They're just little comic books that help you understand, you know, what is Marx's Capital saying? How did Che's life go about? What is capitalism? How has it developed? What are the different forms of it? You know, and just so on and so on. And there are so many other books that are subjects that this series covers. There's ones on like Sigmund Freud, there's one on Trotsky, there's ones on mass incarceration, there's one on the Black Panthers. Very interesting stuff. Very helpful, whether it be just to introduce somebody to a concept or just as a little refresher for yourself. Socialism and Man in Cuba with Che Guevara and Fidel Castro. Very vital reading. Very, very important to read. Very interesting read. Global Justice, Liberation, and Socialism with Che Guevara. This is 3 or 4 different speeches by him. I believe it has, you know, Socialism and Man in Cuba, but I wanted to get that itself because I think there's another text in this that isn't in this book. And then 2, 3 Many Vietnams. Very important. Cold War, Warnings for a Unipolar World by Fidel Castro. This was an interview I believe he did with CNN or something like that that was made into a book. It's interesting. He talks about, like, you know, nuclear war, talks about the arms race, talks about, like, you know, dealing with, like, Khrushchev. I haven't read it in a few years. I need to again, but it's a very interesting little read. History Will Absolve Me by Fidel Castro. Again, a lot of these are ones that I really do need to read, or at least, like, study more about them. But this is one that I found on Mercari. I figure I can't pass this up. You know, so one of these days I'm going to sit down and read this. It's not one that I want to, like, bring with me somewhere because it's just, you know, it's a little frail. But one of these days when I'm just sitting at home doing nothing, I really need to sit down and read some more of these, especially stuff like this. Listen, Yankee, The Revolution in Cuba by C. Wright Mills. C. Wright Mills was a sociologist. I believe he was a Marxist. I'm not 100% on that, but he did write a lot about, like, Marx and Marxism and different Marxist movements. So this was one that I thought was interesting to see because it's a contemporary look at how the Cuban Revolution was being carried out and why, you know, a lot of what was being said by, like, the US media and other Western media was just outright lies. What else we got here? State and Revolution, a classic. If you have not read State and Revolution, find an audiobook of it, find a PDF, go on Marxist.org, find a physical book, just whatever you can do to read and understand State and Revolution, do so. Imperialism, The Highest Stage of Capitalism. I haven't read this since I was like a senior in high school. It's one of those ones by Lenin I really do need to revisit. I've revisited State and Revolution 2 or 3 times, but I've only read Imperialism once. Same goes with Left-Wing Communism and Infantile Disorder. I read this when I went on vacation with some of my family. You know, I read it on the car ride and whatnot. Good read, but something I need to revisit. Engels, Socialism, Utopian, and Scientific, with an introduction by George Novak. Again, this is a kind of a frail copy, so I've only read it a handful of times, maybe once or twice, just so I don't destroy the binding and everything, but it is a very integral reading in Marxism, so I do need to take a look at it again. Because, you know, it never hurts to reread a book. It never hurts to give yourself a refresher. Always remember that. The Principles of Communism by Engels. Very quick read, very small book, but very good, very informative. It's kind of like a precursor to the Communist Manifesto, but it's a little more clear in like what the actual goals are and what the basis of communism is. All right, continuing. Wage, Labor, and Capital, Value, Price, and Profit by Marx. I need to read this. I know it's supposed to be like kind of a precursor to Capital, and that's part of why I have the Marxist Capital for Beginners too, just to help understand that better. But I really do need to sit down and read this. I read half of it, I think, when I was like 19, but that was like 5 years ago. So I need to revisit that. Revisit this, Jesus. I really need to revisit this. I really need to brush up on some of this stuff. You know, just I get so behind on reading that I just forget to like read other stuff or revisit things. Critique of the Gotha program. This is one that I've read a few times. Very informative, very interesting to see how, you know, at least partially, how Marx explained how a socialist society would work, or at least an attempt at a socialist society. Economic and Philosophic Manuscripts of 1844 by Marx. I've never read this, honestly. I need to. Like I've said before, a lot of these are ones that either I need to revisit or I need to read for the first time in general. But, it's one of those things that is just you have to own by Marx. Marx's Dispatches for the New York Tribune. This is one that was very interesting. I found this on Mercari for like $8 or $9, and I figure why not? It's one of those things that I really do need to just sit down and read, whether it be like bringing it with me to work, working on a specific video project or something, or just because I want to, learn. Classic, Communist Manifesto, stolen copy from my high school. Fuck 'em. I shouldn't say that. That's not nice. They gave me this free book. I'm not funny. Anyway, the Communist Manifesto, classic, integral reading. Not as important as, other books are, because some of the information, like what Marx and Engels wrote, is somewhat outdated. They did, clarify things later, but it's still one of those things that you should at least read once or twice as a communist, Dialectical and Historical Materialism by Stalin. I've read this a few times. Very interesting. Very brief read, so it's something that if you just want to brush up on your understanding of dialectical and historical materialism, definitely one to touch on. The results of the first 5-year plan, showing how the advancements in the Soviet economy were made by the 5-year plan, the development of industry, the development of employment, making sure unemployment became a thing of the past, showing the rise in pay. Very good book, very interesting, very necessary reading to me. Foundations of Leninism. I have not read this since I was in college, but I do remember enjoying it. I do remember it being very informative, and it's another thing I just need to revisit. Anna Louise Strong's The Stalin Era. This is a nice account of the era of the Soviet Union under Stalin. It shows like how the Soviets dealt with World War II, the 5-year plans, the Civil War. Anna Louise Strong is a very, I need to stop saying very, but she is an incredibly impeccable writer. She's impeccable, she's informative, she's intelligent. Anna Louise Strong, her works are integral reading for a lot of different subjects. Robert Service's Biography of Stalin. I got this on Mercari for like $5. I haven't read it. I've read parts of it because I have used this in an essay before, but I haven't read the full thing. It's just one of those things that it's very long, and that shouldn't deter me, but it somewhat does. But I mean, hey, if I can read Harry Potter when I was 10, then I should be able to read a biography of Stalin. 10 Days That Shook the World. My copy is a little beaten up, but again, it's an eyewitness account of events during the October Revolution. Integral reading. I've done a review of this book before. Malcolm X by Any Means Necessary by Walter Dean Myers. It's a scholastic book, so it's like middle school level. It's nothing like fantastic, but it's a good refresher. It's a good means of introducing people to the work and the life of Malcolm X, besides his own autobiography, which, by the way, the autobiography of Malcolm X, as told to Alex Haley, read this in college, got most of the way through it, and then just, life hits you and shit, other assignments, work, whatnot, but damn good read. Damn good read. On Guerrilla Warfare by Mao. I read a little bit of it, and then kind of just fell off, honestly, but it's one that I need to revisit. 4 Essays on Philosophy by Mao. This includes, what does it include? There's the man himself. On practice, on contradiction, on the correct handling of contradictions among the people, and where do correct ideas come from. Like, this is like a lot of Mao's philosophy, his look at like dialectical materialism, his looks at, it's just a philosophical work by Mao. Various works, I should say. Little Red Book, or quotations from Chairman Mao. Again, stolen from my old high school because, you know, I was broke and I didn't really want to... I didn't like using PDFs and I didn't want to actually spend the money on it, so whatever. But, hey, fuck it. Capitalism, a very short introduction, one that I need to actually look at, you know, just to have a greater understanding of capitalism itself. This was a gift from a friend. I've read a little bit of it, but I've started reading it again, but I'm not going to actually, like, get into it until I finish what I've been reading recently. But Gore Capitalism by Sayak, Valencia. Not quite sure what it's about, honestly. It's by a Tijuana activist, you know, Sayak, Valencia. It's something with, like, feminism, consumerism, capitalism, and I'm really not sure, but it seems interesting. Right, now for the top shelf. Come on. Che, A Revolutionary Life by John Lee Anderson, if you can see that. John Lee Anderson. I've seen reviews of this. I've heard that it's a very good book. It's one of those things that, like, I got because I know I need to read it. It's just I have not really had much of an opportunity to. American Workers, American Unions in the 20th Century. It's just a book about different unions, different strikes, you know, strike breaking. I found that on Mercari. I figure, hey, it'd be interesting for other projects. This one was a gift. Age of Ambition, Chasing Fortune, Truth and Faith in the New China by Evan Osnos. He worked with, like, the New York Times or some shit. I don't know. Part of me doesn't trust it because it could just be some, like, liberal bullshit about China. But, I mean, hey, it's another source, you know? Lies My Teacher Told Me by, who did this? James W. Lowen. Very good book. It's in the same vein as People's History of the United States, just a little more condensed, and it focuses a little more on stuff like that you would hear explicitly in schools. Howard Zinn even gave it a seal of approval. At the Point of Production, The Local History of the IWW. This is an anthology of various scholarly articles about the IWW, strikes they've been in, their proceedings. It's interesting. I got it for my thesis statement that I was working on when I was in college, and, you know, I'm going to use it probably for future projects as well. And now, what I am currently reading. Democracy for the Few by Michael Parente. It's the 6th edition because the most modern edition is like $40, and I got this for $6. But still very... It's amazing. It's Parente. What can you say? Parente he never fucking misses. He's always hitting home runs. And this is no different. So those are all of my books. If you have any recommendations or any that you think I really should, like, get to reading soon, just let me know in the comments. That's really it. It's just a book showing off video. If you like what I do, maybe consider checking out my stuff or contributing onto the Buy Me a Coffee. I don't know how to end this. Whatever. I hope you enjoyed the video. My name's Jymee. Thank you and bye.